Change is coming. Changes, changes, change, it changes.
Hydro, geothermal, solar, wind. Clean energy offers us the opportunity to meet society's needs while drawing power from renewable, zero-emission sources. We need to get serious about these planet-protecting energy sources and the innovations that enable them. Who wouldn't want a job that moves the needle on this goal? But what are the building blocks of these technologies that will likely be the linchpin of our future? Believe it or not, they probably come from a mine. We're digging into that on Jobs of Tomorrow. Our cultural consciousness has an antiquated view of mining.
Someone down by the creek with a gold pan, or very dirty and head to toe, and it's very manual labor.
It's hard to picture the industry as critical to clean energy and a leader in the movement towards zero emissions.
We are not this very manual canary in the coal mine type of industry. We have evolved.
That was Andrea Brickey from the South Dakota School of Mines. To understand mining's role in clean energy, we have to take a step back and consider how critical mined materials have become to our current standard of living.
What I really began to understand was just the influence of the mining industry on everyone's lives, and how every one of us is touched every day by products that have been mined. The things that we need to live, to grow food, to drive in our cars, to go to school, to be able to communicate with our friends and family.
Unsurprisingly, this is also true for modern innovations.
To create solar panels, wind turbines, the infrastructure we need to provide renewable energy is dependent on mining those materials.
What specific minerals are powering our modern future? Many have become familiar with gold's presence in our consumer electronics and appliances. But there are a myriad of other important mined materials that we need to make our green future a reality. Here's just a few. Cobalt, graphite, lithium, manganese, and nickel are crucial in the creation of batteries needed to store clean energy and, of course, to power electric vehicles.
We know that with renewable energy, we're going to need batteries. We need capability of storing that energy when we're not able to produce it. Whether the sun is shining, we're able to produce solar, or the wind is blowing, we can produce wind. But we need to be able to capture that and store it. And one of the key components of that is batteries. And battery technology is fascinating, and it has evolved dramatically over the last few decades. And we're able to store. But with that technology has come a demand for metals that we weren't really using previously, or that were not as widely in demand. Things like lithium and cobalt and graphene, and these types of minerals and metals that we need to produce to be able to have that capability to store energy from renewable energy, to help us have that clean energy technology be efficient and provide for all of us.
Wind turbines and solar panels require rare metals like silver, praseodymium, dysprosium, and terbium in their construction. And of course, there's copper. Because it's such an efficient conduit, it's used in renewable energy systems to generate power from solar, hydro, thermal, and wind energy across the world. It's especially present in renewable systems, 12 times more than in traditional systems, because its conductivity lowers the amount of energy needed to produce electricity. Coming up,
you need the copper for electrical transmission. You need to have that, whether it's solar, whether it's wind. All of that is based on copper, on metals.
what do you want to be when you grew up?
Electric cars are all.
If you've been keeping up with Jobs of Tomorrow Season 1, and we know you have been, you're probably thinking something like this. Can't many of these materials be reclaimed from old electronics and recycled? You're probably also thinking, Kristen Moran is the coolest host there ever was. And you'd be right about both of those things. But unfortunately, at present, we just can't recycle enough material to create the devices we require to meet our energy needs. Not if we're serious about zero emissions.
Well, as an engineer, I can tell you, despite our efforts to build things to last, eventually they do stop working. Solar panels do not have an infinite life. They have a life in which they are efficient and effective. We're going to need to replace those. And yes, we can recycle, but we also don't know what the technology of tomorrow is going to need. And we may have new metals that are in greater demand because of new technology. Just like 30 years ago, I couldn't have expected that lithium would be in such high demand now because that wasn't the focus then. We can't predict the future of what's going to be needed, but we do know that there will be new technology because as our humans are constantly striving to make things better. We don't always know what that future will hold, but we know that we're going to have needs, and the mining industry is going to be able to help provide that. We will be able to recycle more, and that will be a wonderful addition. But if we look at the past, we're going to need probably different commodities than what we need right now, and we're going to have people who want to also have all the conveniences that we share, the phones, the self-driving cars. And so the demand for those things are going to increase.
Going back to copper, one of the great things about it is that it is one of the most widely recycled materials in the world. So while it's not possible to transition away from mining in the foreseeable future, all of this copper from broken clean energy tech will be able to re-enter the value chain.
The thing about copper that I really like is the fact that it is one of the few metals that is fully recyclable. It is very easy to recycle, and so the chance for us to really think about how do we reprocess those materials and bring them back as a full circular mining opportunity, for me, it kind of ticks all the boxes.
That's Saskia Diveston from Rio Tinto Kennecott, a mining company that operates in 35 countries.
You need the copper for electrical transmission. You need to have that, whether it's solar, whether it's wind. All of that is based on copper, on metals. You literally cannot build the technology of clean energy without what we mine and what we produce in that way. You then look at some of the critical minerals when you look at your batteries, whether it's your lithium, cobalt, all of those come from mining. And we can't just recycle them. We still require some fresh material. And so there will always be a part of mining that will be a part of clean energy. And so for me, the key thing is for people to understand that you actually need both. You can't have one without the other. And that for me is really the key piece for people to think about, is you need to look at both of those pieces to really be able to say, how do we get to a more renewable focused future?
Coming up,
buyers will decide, do I want to buy an iPhone that's made with metals that have been produced responsibly, or maybe the cheapest one? To me, this is the starting piece of getting there, is attaching ESG credentials to that metal production.
So, if we can't decouple mining from clean energy, what can we do? The good news is, a lot. We can use clean energy to mine. And many companies are already doing it. Take Copper Mountain, for example. It's a copper mine in British Columbia, Canada, and they've set a goal of zero emissions for 2035.
Why did we choose 2035? It's a good question, right?
That's Don Strickland, the COO.
Right, everybody's talking 2050. 2050 is a long ways away. It's almost becomes someone else's challenge, and we wanted to make it our challenge, and we wanted to do something about it.
That's a great goal, but how are they actually doing it? Since Copper Mountain first made this pledge, they've already made some progress, reducing their carbon intensity by over 30%. One of the key enablers is an innovation called Trolley Assist.
It's taking a haul truck, the largest single source of GHGs on our mine site, and converting it to electricity on the most carbon intensive haul, which is uphill loaded. And so Trolley Assist makes a huge impact on our total GHGs. Of all of our GHGs, around 70% are generated by haul trucks. We're going after the single largest impact we can make with Trolley Assist.
One of the key enablers of this plan is the mine's location in British Columbia.
We have one of the lowest carbon intensive electricity grids in the world. And so the majority of BC electricity is generated by hydroelectricity. And the BC government has actually committed to achieving net zero by 2030 on the electricity grid. And so the more we can electrify, that's our great advantage in BC. The more we can electrify, the more we can reduce our GHGs. And so Trolley fits right into that. We're replacing diesel with clean BC electricity.
And they're expanding on that idea as part of their path to net zero.
At some point in the future, we will have a battery that we can use in a haul truck to go from the trolley line to the shovel, or from the trolley line to the primary crusher to the waste dump. There's many options, but they're all early stages. So trolley's the first piece. In the interim, we're also testing renewable diesel in haul trucks to see if we can further reduce our GHGs by using renewable diesel instead of regular diesel.
Zero emissions for one company is great, but how can we make it the standard? Copper Mountain is collaborating with the British Columbia government and IBM on a digital trust ecosystem for mining.
The BC government's had this vision of how do we promote and how do we show the world that BC production of metals is more responsible than maybe a lot of other places in the world. Out of that process came this project of attaching ESG credentials such as carbon intensity to metal production and passing along the supply chain so that the end buyer has the opportunity to purchase that metal based upon the ESG credentials. And so we're using blockchain technology, open blockchain technology to pass those credentials along.
This would finally lift the veil on where materials in your everyday devices come from, allowing consumers to vote for sustainable mining practices with their dollar.
The analogy I use is like organic bananas. If you go to the grocery store, you can look at regular bananas or organic bananas, and you can make that decision if you want to buy organic or not. At some point in the future, all the metal in the world will be purchased with that same mentality. Buyers will decide, do I want to buy an iPhone that's made with metals that have been produced responsibly, or maybe the cheapest one? And so to me, this is the starting piece of getting there, is attaching ESG credentials to that metal production.
For those who are looking for a career that allows them to be part of the clean energy future, mining might not be the first place you would think of, but it makes a lot of sense.
Let's be honest, I think people often think of mining still potentially old school mine carts and people with pick and axe and literally digging and with lamps and really that old school. And that is the complete opposite of what we are. For us to move to be able to have more of a decarbonized future is going to depend on the mining industry.
Everyone on the planet is positively impacted by mining. And we do have the dark side of mining and the history, and we want to fix that. We need to fix that. It's not our future. It's very easy for us to communicate the benefits of renewable energy, and we can all see that. We can see that by using solar, wind, maybe we can help transition. What we also need to see is that the mining industry is needed to help that transition. It's not something we can flip a switch and say that we're going to run on completely on renewable energy. There's a transition, and we need to acknowledge that transition, realize that we need to work together in this and figure out what that process is going to be to get from where we are now to where we want to be. It involves both the mining industry and green energy to get to that point.
What are these jobs actually like? We talked to Mary Anna Allen, an engineer at Rio Tinto Kennecott, to find out.
Good thing about maintenance engineering is it kind of changes day to day. I guess some key things that I do on a daily basis right now is we monitor our asset health. The truck shop and our support equipment looks like monitoring the health for our engines in the haul trucks, because they're one of our what we call major components. So they're very expensive. They're longer lead times. Another one is like our wheel motors. So we monitor asset health on those two are the key indicators for me right now that I keep an eye on day to day. The other thing I do day to day is downtime reconciliation. So we look at the downtime coding from the mine care and the maintenance shop and see where we can make improvements based off the data that we're getting in. Other, I guess, responsibilities for maintenance engineer is what we call rapid problem solving. So when equipment breaks down and we're not quite sure why, or we think there can be an improvement there, we'll do a rapid problem solving workshop to be able to get down and see what actions we need to take out of it. Other ones are continuous improvement projects. So that can be anywhere from streamlining our parts process to redesigning of equipment to completely new solutions on our equipment.
So, why might these jobs be interesting to STEM students who may be considering other venues?
You can see firsthand the products that your mining go into. Your cell phone, your computer, your vehicle. You know, those are consumer products that you see every day, day in and day out, and you know there's an impact that you're making there. The mining industry as a whole is a little daunting sometimes because we only think, you know, mining engineering, or maybe those operators or geotechnical people can really progress here. But there's a whole other side that even I didn't know about until I got to Rio Tinto. You know, the group I'm in is called Asset Management and Reliability, which is exactly what it sounds like. We manage our assets. So the equipment, the tanks, the plants, you know, making sure that those are operating efficiently. And that's really one place I'd say for those people who aren't in traditional mining careers or on that path to traditional mining careers, I'd say that's one place to look, because it is really cool to be able to go out to these sites, you know, instead of maybe just being in a building.
So if you are allergic to sitting at a desk, are attracted to problem solving, and want to tackle decarbonization, mining might be a field to consider.
Sustainability, you got to have a good background that can analyze and look at things from a technical perspective. You really need people that are passionate, that want to do the right thing and are looking for solutions or can lead change to do the right thing.
We have adventure. We have challenges, and overcoming those challenges is part of most engineers' DNA, as we love to take on a problem and find a solution. And that keeps us busy every day. There's always a new challenge, and challenges are things that we can't control. It's like playing a video game that never ends, but there's always a new adventure and a new challenge.
Adventure. Challenges that the fate of the world depends on solving. The opportunity to pronounce words like praseodymium, and maybe even locate it on the periodic table. Sounds exciting. I'm Kristen Morand, and this has been Jobs of Tomorrow.